Welcome to episode 537 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Meyers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I am interviewing writer Gigi Levangie. Her writing credits include the Julia Roberts film Stepmom, which we talk about briefly. But today she's on the show to talk about her latest film, a thriller feature called Trust, which we talk about in some depth. So stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shows really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mentioned in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcasts, and then just look for episode 537. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I'll teach you how to write a professional logline and query letter and how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. Quick few words about what I've been working on. I am deep into pre-production with my rom-com, which we are shooting in November. Just to recap, I have a small crew assembled. I've just about got all my locations figured out. I've got the schedule pretty well locked and all of our dates are locked. We're shooting from October 27th through November 14th. So the big thing I'm working on now is casting. There's always lots of actors to choose from here in LA. So that's really the issue. We have an avalanche of people, and we've got to pare that number down just by going through them. And you start with just headshots and you look at some of their reels, some of the media that they send in, and then you choose the ones that you like. You send them a little notice. They send in a taped audition. So we've now got actors submitting their taped auditions. And then this weekend, I've been going through them, trying to figure out who are the people that we want to bring in for our in-person audition, which will be next weekend. So getting the two leads right. Obviously, there's a bunch of smaller roles as well, but really focused on the two leads right now. We're casting the smaller roles as well, but the leads are really taking up a lot of time, and rightfully so. I think getting the two leads right is probably the most impactful decision that we'll make. I mean, this is a rom-com, so we've got to find two beautiful actors who are great and just have great on-screen chemistry together. So we're spending some time with this and going to try and take our time, but hopefully in the next week or two, we'll have that all ironed out. And then once the casting is done, we really are on the home stretch. One thing I'm still looking for is a band. We have a bar scene where there's two scenes, but we all be shot in one morning. No, it's actually Tuesday, November 11th for about 5 hours in the morning up in Ventura at the bar that we're renting. And the band is just going to be playing in the background. There's a scene where the two leads, the couple, they go up and they dance. And the first scene is like one day they go and he's not very good. And then the second scene, he goes up there and he's improved his dancing skills. So it's kind of a little bit of a revelation. He's gotten better at dancing. And we just need a band that can play some fast-paced, danceable tunes. And they have a nice stage. It's a really cool bar that I've found, and they have a nice stage, plenty of area. So we'll try and get some extras and get the band up there. So if you're in a band or you know someone who is in a band and you perhaps might want to be featured as the band in the feature film, just reach out to me. As always, if you're interested in helping in the film in any capacity, really, just let me know. I'm easy to get a hold of. You can always reach me at info@sellingyourscreenplay.com. Anyways, lots more work to do, so stay tuned for those updates. Let's get into the main segment. Today, I am interviewing writer Gigi Levangie. Here is the interview. Welcome, Gigi, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Thank you, Ashley. I'm delighted to be here.
Perfect. So to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business? Just a quick overview so we can kind of get to know you a little bit.
Of course. Okay. I grew up in East Hollywood. I went to Hollywood High. I did not have any connection to the idea of Hollywood, to the land of Hollywood. But I was a cheerleader at Hollywood High, and then I went on to go to UCLA, taking 2 buses to school, and still no interest really in Hollywood. But at some point in time, I became an intern on Thick of the Night, which was Alan Thicke's talk show. And I don't know if you remember Alan Thicke, he's
Oh
Robin
yeah.
Thicke's
Yeah, yeah.
father, and he was very talented. And I started writing sketches for the show as an intern,
Huh.
and he actually used them. So having been I was a kid who I loved reading, I loved writing. I skipped a couple grades, and those were the things. Too I was chubby and allergic to smog, so I couldn't play outside. So everything was centered around books and my imagination. So smash cut, I start working in Hollywood. I work as an assistant to Fred Silverman. I'm reading scripts, and I'm not thinking I can write just as good as these guys. I'm thinking I can write just as shitty as these guys and get paid how much? Because I didn't have any money. No one in my family had money. And so that was the start of my illustrious career, was sort of practical,
Mm-hmm.
you
So
know.
give us a little advice. So you get a job as an intern. You're
Yes.
clearly not on any kind of writing track. How do you get to the point where you can say, without being annoying, because everybody has a script, everybody thinks they're a writer, director. How do you get to a point where you can actually start to say, hey, I could write some of these little bits for you, some of these jokes, and actually offload those? How do you actually start that
Well, first of all, you
conversation?
write them. You write them. So
Hmm.
you actually have something. You don't say, I could do that. You do it, and you take a chance. And especially with sort of that was a freewheeling show where you could pitch ideas and that sort of thing. And I sat in every meeting, and I had my little, notebook, and I would take notes like a good secretary, but I was always thinking of ideas. Um, and sometimes you have to be a little annoying, you know.
Hmm.
I was married to somebody very, very big producer, Brian Grazer, and he for a long time, and he didn't like saying no to him on, in a business sense was just a mere obstacle. It was like saying you're going to get to yes eventually. Sometimes you have to be that
Hmm.
personality. I was told by Phil Stutz, like Dr. Stutz of the famous documentary, you have to learn how to ask for favors, because
Yeah.
that's what Hollywood is. And if you have a good script, you're actually doing the person you're asking a favor.
Hmm.
Bring something to the table, not just I have a dream. I have, like Oliver Stone, I'm walking around with 12 scripts. You know, it's you really have to have the goods and work on your craft. As I was obsessed, I'd get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and work before I went to my job with Fred Silverman.
Hmm.
But really, in the beginning, it was like, these guys are making how much money?
Hmm.
You know?
Yeah, sound advice. I hope people really heed that. So just quickly talk about Stepmom a little bit. Was that a spec script that you were able to get into the system?
Yes.
And so what was the inspiration for that? And then ultimately, how did you kind of get that into the system and get that greenlit?
Okay, so Stepmom, I wrote that very, very, very quickly. And I was at the time about to become a stepmom. And it was just this idea I had, like, what if something happened to my stepkid's mom? And then if I were her, how would I train a new woman to raise my kids? And I couldn't believe that no one had written this story before. So it was just something that I felt very deeply, and I wrote it quickly. And I had an agent at the time, but I wasn't really signed on with him. And he got it to Julia Roberts and Susan Sarandon's agent. And eventually they said yes. And then it went through all these different directors. And a few years later, Chris Columbus decided to direct it. And at the end, I think it works as a movie really well. It didn't have, like, my script had a little more humor, in it. But that's just me. That's how I
Mhm.
deal with bad news. I wait 20 minutes and make a joke,
Hmm.
So that's my coping mechanism. So, but I don't want to say I got lucky with that, but that was relatively smooth in terms of getting it to people, relative to other projects.
Hmm.
You wait years and years and years. Like
Yeah.
this one, I think Breathe was 6 years. I mean,
Now,
sorry, Trust.
yeah. Now, with something like Stepmom, especially the way it's sort with Julia Roberts and Susan Sarandon,
Oh,
very esteemed actors with Academy Award nominations. So you think you're going down this drama lane, but your script is actually pretty high concept. Exactly what you're saying, where it's like, gee, I'm surprised nobody ever came up with this idea before.
right.
And like, where do you land on that discussion of, how important is something being high concept like that, even something that's going to be sort of a drama, which is what you came up with, it still has a high concept premise.
You know what? So many things can be high concept, without making it obvious. I don't know. Like, I don't necessarily choose something to watch because it's like a great soundbite,
Hmm.
you know. And I think most people are the same. Like, yes, Stepmom is you get it right away, but there are other movies where it's like a slow burn. Like I like French films, or um, European films I used to go to all the time. And they're more like a slow burn, you know, not a lot of high concept there. But so I don't think it's always necessary. I think if you're writing something and you feel it, like this this screenplay talks to your greatest fear, your greatest joy. If you feel some sort of emotion about what you're writing, other people will feel the same. That's what I think. And you better get it down on paper, because somebody, especially if it's a little high concept, somebody is also doing the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. So let's dig into your latest film, Trust, which you wrote.
Okay.
Maybe to start out, you can just give us a quick picture log line. What is this film all about?
Well, it's about a famous woman, sort of America's sweetheart, who has to leave town, because she's about to be hit with terrible publicity, and she wants to go to a weekend secluded Airbnb and just shut the world off. But the best laid plans, everything goes south for her on this trip. And it was based on one of my greatest fears, which is being locked in a small room closet, in the dark, and not being able to get out.
Hmm.
And so that's why I wrote it, because it was a greatest fear. It appealed to me on an emotional level, and I felt some urgency because I had read a story years ago about a woman who went on vacation, secluded area. In the middle of the night, they surmised that she used, instead of going to the bathroom, she went into the hot water closet, and she never made it out.
Hmm.
The door closes and that's
Oh.
it. And she tried to scratch away. Anyway, and I thought, this is the beginning of a movie. I have to write. I had a sense of urgency about it. There are ideas and we share them all, but that just speak to you, and you have to, but it's imperative that you write it down, and you get whatever your first draft done, I think, as quickly as possible, to have something,
Mhm.
tangible.
So you mentioned, and I think it's absolutely correct. I really hope people are listening. Just the idea of having your greatest fear or greatest joy. If that emotion is in there for you, it's likely in there for other people. But I can't help but notice with Trust, and I totally get what you're saying. It could be a greatest fear, but there's also the practical where it's very contained. So you come up with an idea that also gives yourself a decent chance of actually getting produced fairly easy, because it's not going to cost $100 million to shoot this movie. But how
Yeah,
much does that come into your thinking when you're developing these
it's
ideas?
so funny because that didn't come into my thinking at all. In fact, I was trying to figure out ways. So I have a crime committed outside the room. I have violence outside the room. I have her story leading up to it and a little bit of backstory. But I didn't think about that at all when I wrote it because I don't have the producer's mind. I am only about the story and for better or worse. But now, of course, yeah, I have another horror script. And of course I'm thinking, well, how do I make this more insular? How do I get rid of all the externals and make I mean, look at Oren Kulis, and the Saw pictures,
Mhm.
like brilliant, right? I am not a horror picture fan per se, but brilliant that you're in one room and you throw everything that you can at the characters.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
So let's talk about your writing process.
yes.
Just quickly, just maybe you can just kind of give us an overview. Sort of, what does your writing process look like? Where do you typically write? Do you need to write at a coffee shop where you have ambient noise? Do you have a home office? Do you write in the morning? Do you write at night? Middle of the night? What does your writing schedule look like?
God, I've only been doing this and I'm 62. I've been doing this for almost 40 years. But okay, so I write usually what happens. I used to have home office and all that. But now I go to a coffee shop. I put in I have headphones. I put them in and I put on Simply Noise, the app Simply Noise. I put it to brown noise. There's pink noise, white
Huh.
noise, brown noise. There's rain, there's fire. Um, I like the brown noise. It's kind of low key. Um, and I time myself, the Pomodoro method. So 25 minutes of writing, 5 minutes off, 25 minutes of writing, 5 minutes daily mail, you know?
Hmm.
Um, I have to get through, I try to get through 5 pages of a screenplay at least, if not more, and then 1,000 words of a novel. If I'm right, depending on what I'm writing. And usually in the morning, I work out. I ran out of kids. My kids are grown now, so I work out and then I uh, make myself breakfast, go to write, have to have a latte, have to have my coffee.
Now, how much time do you spend in the outline stage? Like you're giving, 1,000 publishable words, 5 pages. If you're in the outline stage, and how much time do you spend in the outline stage? And how do you gauge whether a day spent in the outline stage is successful or not? Because you don't have those benchmarks, those clear benchmarks like you're talking about.
Right, but you will feel like in terms of your time uh output that you have done something. You'll feel it.
Hmm.
Uh, in terms of outline, when I'm writing a screenplay, I go back to the 10-day screenplay by Travis and Darren Donnelly. And that kind of gets you, the first day is your character sketches, and then it goes from there. And then the second day is page 1 through 15. Like, it's not so much an outline as benchmarks. And if you know your character's internal and external conflicts, then that's kind of, I don't think you need a whole outline, but you do need your ending. I think you need to write to your ending.
Hmm.
Um, I just think that book is so honestly so helpful because it gets you through the first draft.
Okay. Say that again. It's not a book that I've read.
I know, no, it's called the 10-day screenplay.
Okay. Okay. We'll have to link to that in the show notes. How do you, once you have a draft that you're ready, what does your development process look like? Do you have an agent and a manager? You send it to them? Do you have actor friends? Do you have writer friends? What do you do to
God,
get notes?
okay, I do have writer friends. Um, I no longer, I mean, I have agent friends, but I don't have an agent and I don't have a manager. I have an attorney. So if I need to make a deal, I go to my
Mhm.
attorney. I found that I mean, this is so, I, I haven't, usually I wrote something on spec and sometimes whole novels. I have novels in my laptop right now. Before I talked to an agent or pitched it. So I've kind of, and what I do is I take my script and I give it to a producer friend that I know. They don't have to be the biggest producers, but maybe they know somebody else. It's sort of a process, and you sort of have to stay on top of people, and you have to be willing to ask. That's a big thing. you sort of have to be unembarrassable
Mhm. In
too.
your career, what would you say is the distribution in terms of spec scripts you've written versus writing assignments? Just how does that sort of
80/20 spec.
gotcha. And then what is this process like? Take us through like with trust. So you wrote this as a spec, and then what did you do? You said you had a lawyer, so you just started sending it out to producers that you thought might be interested. You have
I
a
sent it,
connection, a Rolodex.
I had a friend who's a producer, not one of the great big ones. Um, and she sent it on to Miles Coulis, who is Oren's son, and this is his first movie. He's a former professional hockey player. He's very much on top of these things and on top of production, and he's good at what he does. And then I knew Oren from, years ago. So it was sort of like getting to know
Hmm.
someone you knew in a different lifetime. It just sort of came together that way. But it started out with, I had a friend who had one time been a producer on a movie, and I gave it to her to see what she thought about it.
Gotcha. Now, I think one thing that I think a lot of people getting into writing, the first thing they want to do is get an agent. And here you are, someone who's been doing this for a while, and it does not. So maybe you can dispel some of the myths there. What is your thoughts on that? Like, why aren't you spending your time trying to find an agent at this point?
Um, I, it could be luck, but I've had an agent and not had an agent, and my book agents were, on top of it. And for a long time, my other agents were great too, but I never got, I used to get assignments every once in a while, but I I just really wanted to write what I wanted to write.
Hmm. Gotcha.
So, I was, and that's also lucky, but I think you have to have passion and energy and
Hmm.
urgency for this work.
Yeah. How can people see Trust? What is the release schedule going to be like for it?
August 22nd.
Okay, perfect. And I just like to end the interviews in August 22nd. You
Yes.
say it's going to get a theatrical release. It'll be available on demand,
Yes.
all that sort of stuff. Perfect.
Yeah.
And I just like to wrap up the interview by asking the guest, is there anything you've been watching recently that you can recommend to our mostly screenwriting audience?
Oh my gosh, I've been watching a bunch of Billy Wilder movies, and
Hmm.
last night I watched Sunset Boulevard. I don't think I'd ever seen it, and it was so modern. It was scary.
Hmm.
Like it was way too close, about a down and out screenwriter who sort of hooks up with this aging actress, and it could have been made, the dialogue, everything, it could have been made today, except, you'd have to put cell phones in there and
Yeah.
whatnot. But
Yeah.
anyway, his movies they're so varied and Double Indemnity and so
Mhm.
great. And he's an inspiration to me because I like to write different types of things.
Yeah. And what's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing? Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, anything you're comfortable
I
sharing, I'll put in the
say
show notes.
Instagram is probably the best way. I mean, I'm on Twitter, but Instagram is like fun, you
Okay,
know.
perfect. And we'll get that. We'll put that in the show notes. People can click over to it. Well, Gigi, I really appreciate your coming on and talking with me
Thank
today.
you.
So good luck
This
with
was
this film
really
and all your
fun.
business. Well, thank you. It was fun
Take
talking to you as well. So, all right, we'll talk to you later.
take
Bye.
care. Bye.
A quick plug for the SYS Screenwriting Analysis Service. It's a really economical way to get a high quality professional evaluation on your screenplay. When you buy our 3-pack, you get evaluations at just $67 per script for feature films and just $55 for teleplays. All the readers have professional experience reading for studios, production companies, contests, and agencies. You can read a short bio on each reader on our website, and you can pick the reader who you think is the best fit for your script. Turnaround time is usually just a few days, but rarely more than a week. The readers will evaluate your script on 6 key factors: concept, character, structure, marketing, marketability, tone, and overall craft, which includes formatting, spelling, and grammar. Every script will get a grade of pass, consider, or recommend, which should help you roughly understand where your script might rank if you were to submit it to a production company or agency. We can provide an analysis on features or television scripts. We also do proofreading without any analysis. We will also look at a treatment or outline and give you the same analysis on it. So if you're looking to vet some of your project ideas, this is a great way to do it. We will also write your logline and synopsis for you. You can add this logline and synopsis writing service to an analysis, or you can simply purchase this service as a standalone product. As a bonus, if your screenplay gets a recommend or a consider from one of our readers, you get to list the screenplay in the SYS Select database, which is a database for producers to find screenplays and a big part of our SYS Select program. Producers are in the database searching for material on a daily basis, so it's another great way to get your material in front of them. As a further bonus, if your script gets a recommend from one of our readers, your screenplay will get included in our monthly Best of newsletter. Each month, we send out a newsletter that highlights the best screenplays that have come through our script analysis service. This is a monthly newsletter that goes out to our list of over 400 producers who are actively looking for material. So again, this is another great way to get your material out there. So if you want a professional evaluation of your screenplay at a very reasonable price, check out www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultants. Again, that's sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultants. That's the show. Thanks for listening.